I think he's in there.
Yeah, Jason's here. Yep.
Yeah, I gave him a thumbs up. All right, welcome back. We're starting the afternoon session of the Planning Commission. And where we left off before we broke for lunch is that we had a couple people on Zoom for public input for the agricultural resource document. I know that one of the people that we had to ask to hold won't be back till probably 2, and we'll ring her in. 1 to 2. Okay.
Probably, yeah.
Could be. All right, and so I don't know who the person was who was waiting before we broke. Is that person back? All right, so we will start with the person on Zoom. Please introduce yourself and carry on.
Guest, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Angela Amaral, and before the break, you guys were speaking on the agricultural resource element, and there was some discussion about how I understand that cannabis is looked at as an ag commodity in the county, but I wonder if you guys can't acknowledge that cannabis in this element, just an acknowledgement that cannabis is a new commercial industry in our area and quite volatile. The economic stability and long-term environmental effects are still unknown. I think it's still a fairly new industry here, and we don't understand it completely, and I think we need to acknowledge that at a minimum. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me, I've swallowed a bug. Thank you. And to your, well, I don't know if it was actually your question, but I did get a couple of texts about when we mentioned cannabis earlier, that it was an agricultural crop. Maria, if you could, excuse me, Ms. Turner, if you could just explain that in California, it's at this point not necessarily recognized in the same way that it's recognized here in the county, and can you elaborate on that process and how the requirements either differ or are the same for, I'm putting in quotes, regular agriculture as opposed, not opposed, but as compared to cannabis?
Thank you. The state of California is actually very similar to the position of the county, that cannabis is an agricultural crop and an agricultural product. Federally, there's a differentiation in that it has not been fully legalized. It's been descheduled, but that's where the differentiation actually lies. The state of California has set up regulations that require a dual permitting and licensing system. So cannabis is the only one that I know of that needs both a local use permit and a state license in order to operate. There's probably similarities, like in bars and that sort of thing. But cannabis, for our purposes, is unique in that. Due to that, it is treated differently than conventional agricultural projects in that they come before you as proposed use permits for when they need major use permits. The County Board of Supervisors has recently made a number of updates to the cannabis regulations with the understanding that further updates will be made in the near future. So probably next calendar year will be staff, that's me, will be working on Article 73 draft ordinance, which the purpose of that is to make additional changes that require additional CEQA analysis, as well as drawing as many cannabis regulations into a single element or single zoning article as possible in order to make it easier for the public to digest all the regulations instead of having to flip around through the zoning code. The board would like to get that streamlined. So we'll continue to work on that. But as stated prior to our lunch break, not wanting to get ahead of the board or recognizing establish board policies was one of the criteria used to evaluate whether or not to accept or decline different aspects or different pieces of public input specific to cannabis. Our
So,
purpose was to treat it as though it is just the same as any other agricultural product, because that is where it does seem to be going over the next 20 years. We anticipate that that will increase in the future. But Lake County still needs to do additional consideration of how the right to farm ordinance applies. In this case, it does not apply regarding regulations for odor impacts. Does not. The right to farm ordinance is very important in protecting our agricultural industries and in explaining possible conflicts that could arise between ag and non-ag uses. However, the state does still allow jurisdictions to create regulations for agricultural products that would otherwise be covered. We can still add regulations. And so in terms of odor impacts, specifically to off-site residences, the board has recently addressed that by additional setbacks according to what zoning district the activity is taking place in. Excuse me.
when you say that they follow the same rules, one of the questions that came to me was, do they contribute to the irrigated lands program that conventional farmers are assessed by the state?
That's handled by the Farm Bureau, so I would actually defer to when Serena returns. Let's direct that question to her, because I don't
Yeah,
really-
my understanding, and I can't speak to it with any great authority, but that the cannabis farmers actually do their own separate reporting to the state, so that they are not part of the irrigated lands program.
Oh, okay.
That's not under
So
my purview, so I don't have any information.
Yeah, I don't know all the specifics, but currently cannabis is not part of the irrigated plans or the irrigated lands program. But there was some sort of a program initiated specifically for cannabis.
Okay. All kinds of new things. All right. So, is there any other public comment there on Zoom? No. All right. So we'll do one more shot at public comment in the chambers, and then we'll bring it back to the commission.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Margot Kambara. This relates to the Farm Bureau's comment that Executive Director Serena Onate was in the middle of sharing with you. And this was part of my public comment to the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, and so I would like to share this with you. So the Farm Bureau submitted a letter to the general plan team for inclusion into the general plan. And the response that the Farm Bureau received was the comment would not be included into the general plan because it was not specific enough. And this is an excerpt of what the Farm Bureau submitted. It addresses protection against conversion of ag lands to urban uses. Quote, the draft element includes important policies intended to protect agricultural lands from conversion to urban development. However, we, Farm Bureau, recommend strengthening these protections by clarifying these large-scale masterminded communities or new towns should not be developed on lands designated for agriculture outside established community growth boundaries. Across California, proposals have emerged that seek to convert large areas of farmland into entirely new communities through general plan amendments, explicitly directing urban scale development to existing communities will help ensure that Lake County's agricultural landscape remains intact, end quote. So if that was not clear, I think it would have benefited all involved to go back to the Farm Bureau and to ask for that clarification. But to dismiss this entire comment as not specific enough and then to go on misses the whole point, not the whole point, but misses an important point to be made in the ag chapter. We're talking about preservation of ag lands. That seems pretty clear and important. So at the very least, that points to probably a process flaw where time should be allotted to go back to major stakeholders like the Farm Bureau to say, what exactly do you mean here? Or can you clarify? So I bring that to your attention to show that we need to spend more time on this work product to make it Lake County ready. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, I was just notified that Serena is going to, she's in the SALC meeting right now that Shannon is in, and so she'll be down and can actually speak on behalf of the Farm Bureau. One thing I'd like to add in response, maybe for a little additional detail on that comment, not the public comment, but the public comment inventory. Williamson Act is an agreement that automatically renews every year. It's an agreement between a local jurisdiction, a property owner, and the state. It automatically renews every year unless the board directs staff to do an audit and identify property owners who are not actually using the land for commercial agriculture. And in those cases where we were directed in 2012, we did that audit. It was a team effort between community development, the assessor's office, and I think the tax collector's office to identify the properties that were benefiting from the significant property tax reduction that one recognizes during Williamson Act, but not using the land for commercial agriculture. So we did that, and a number of properties were then started, or the property owners were notified that they were going to be the county was going to launch that 10-year process of non-renewal. So the Williamson Act automatically renews every year. There are two ways to get out of it. One is a process of non-renewal, which is a 10-year process by which the property tax rises incrementally during those 10 years until it reaches the market rate at the end of the 10 years. The other way, it can be initiated by the property owner, or I think maybe the county can too, and that's a much more expensive, intensive process to cease that agreement with the state. It requires significant CEQA analysis. It's very expensive and time-consuming to do it quicker than that 10-year non-renewal. So I wasn't really sure, and since large developments aren't allowed on Williamson Act land, other than the general plan or rezoning process, which is up for public review and input and comes before this planning commission and the board of supervisors. Other than that, I wasn't clear on what additional support the Farm Bureau was asking for, because a lot of this is already in law. There are strong protections, both for the uses of land in Williamson Act contract parcels as well as the conversion of any land. So that was the lack of clarity. And perhaps Ms. Onate could speak to it, but if I could remind the commission, that's exactly why we invested the time in creating that public input inventory, so people could review what was accepted or declined and then take advantage of these public hearings to make their positions known. We did not have the staff time to go out to stakeholders and then say, well, what are you talking about? As we were putting together that public comment inventory, it was for this exact purpose. Not so that we were thinking that we wouldn't have enough time and should have then gone out to every stakeholder, or why draw the line at just the stakeholder agencies? Why not every public comment and go out and ask for additional detail, which we just didn't have the time for that.
Thank you. All right, so I think we'll close public comment for right now, and when Farm Bureau comes, we'll open it up and accommodate her schedule as well. So maybe before we start marching through these, however many pages we have, how many pages we have in this, are there any just general comments from the commission on the agricultural resource document overall, and then we can go through one by one if that's, I mean, it was easy enough to go through the opening document because it was short. So just getting some feel for how folks would like to work through this one.
My overall general comments on the agricultural resource section or element is that it needs some work. Out of all the elements, this one in particular, I'll just say I was most displeased with. I think it's the use of, maybe it's transitioning and maybe it's style. I'm not sure. It's something that maybe I have to get comfortable with, but it's the use of some aspirational words versus what was formerly more concrete or should and shalls that were in our previous plan. So there are a number of things, and we can go through them, one by one. But overall, this is a document I have most notes on, or in this element, and most concerns with. And I question, and I don't need an answer on this because I do, given that agriculture is very, very important to the community of Lake County, but the agricultural element is also not a mandatory element within the general plan, but it is an important element to the county of Lake. I know that, and maybe, this is wrong of me too, also to compare to the past, but I know when the ag element was first created and put into the 2008 plan, which I have right here in front of me, there was a committee that was assigned to review the ag resource element that was about 15 to 20 people that represented quite a broad spectrum of agriculture in Lake County. And I just wonder where the information came from. Unfortunately, the ag committee that we have now, which, while it's made up of a number of good quality people, but it's still a rather small representation of the agricultural community. And then when I hear, which I'd love to hear a little bit more from Serena from the Farm Bureau, that the Farm Bureau is not, that we're not taking the time to sit down with the Farm Bureau to discuss the ag element. That concerns me, and maybe answer some of the questions why there are things that give me pause in the ag element.
Okay.
Those are my general comments.
I'd like to just add a little detail that the Lake County Farm Bureau was in a variety of ag stakeholder meetings. They were represented in a number of the meetings that we did have. They're also present at the Agricultural Advisory Committee, which did review this document as well. So it's not a case that they just submitted one letter late in the process. And also, of all of the suggestions and comments from the Lake County Farm Bureau, everything was integrated into the plan except for 2 items. So Lake County Farm Bureau, hopefully Serena will agree with me that they weren't shut out of the process.
I would just say that I don't know that they feel like they're shut out, but I think that probably more work needs to be done. And we did have one meeting at the Ag Advisory Committee when the winter version came out, the first version came out. Since the summer version came out a couple weeks ago, there has not been an opportunity to then review it again. I too have,
Except for we posted it in mid-July and notified we did a full email blast and email specifically to the LAPACs and GPACs just to let them know that it was available. So.
right. And I do appreciate the fact that when we submitted a revise of the paragraph that's on page 2, that we appreciate that opportunity. It's on page 2. It's all in green. I would just make just a suggestion. It says to add to the top of it. Add either right to farm or agricultural resources - right to farm. Just a suggestion for clarity on that. But overall, I think that a little more time needs to be spent on this. So I'll let Commissioner Field.
I agree with what both the other commissioners have said, and I understand that This document was largely written by a consultant who is not here in Lake County, if I'm understanding correctly. It feels to me like whoever wrote this has no idea what is going on in Lake County agriculture. Some of the numbers are out of date. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are or if anyone has collected those numbers, but things are changing rapidly in the ag community. As everybody can see who drives through the county, grapes are going out. They may come back, they might not. We just suffered our worst blight year in history in the pears. Cannabis as an agricultural crop is under debate. It's not federally recognized as a food or a fiber. I think these are all issues that need to be discussed in a bigger way. I mean, consulting the Farm Bureau is great. Farm Bureau has been in transition. The leadership has changed recently. Serena's a wonderful human being. She's just getting on her feet. Rebecca just left. I think that Farm Bureau is also a membership organization and does not include all farmers. I just feel like I would feel better about this if staff had done a better job reaching out to the actual agriculture community. I'm not sure how to do that. I don't remember receiving anything directly inviting me to any of these meetings. But that's my overall impression about this section. I have lots and lots of comments. I mean, I feel like I should just rewrite it because it's so just not acceptable the way it is.
So let me ask this question, since Commissioner Rosenthal mentioned this is an, I don't want to say optional, but a chosen ad, is that correct?
This element is not mandated by state law.
Thank you, mandated was the word. Is there a possibility that this could be put aside and more time spent on it between now and maybe not even the end of this calendar year, but that it could then be worked on for, I don't know, maybe a spring, release or something? Is there flexibility in this particular element?
Should that be a recommendation of the Planning Commission that is approved by the board, we could consider that. It would just be removed from the general plan update for finishing at a later date. We're allowed 4 general plan amendments per year, according to state law. And so this could be one of them, so long as the board had a discussion regarding what other of their top priorities that has been waiting for this to be over would they care to set aside, as well as additional funding.
Okay, so give me
Or if they preferred it to be entirely in-house done. So it would take longer than, just a couple months. It would be a longer term process, but we would discuss that at the board level if this was a recommendation.
Well, possibly. I think this is fixable. So, but it will take effort, whether it's staff or whether staff would accept, additional help from a group or from Farm Bureau or whatever, or from this commission to fix some of the items that need to be fixed. But shall we go through it and see exactly?
Well, let me just ask. If our recommendation were to say put together a small ad hoc committee to sit down and go through this, could we, in your estimation, Commissioner Rosenthal, could we do that between now and whenever our last date is, September 17th? Was that our last one? And bring that back, I know that's our EIR day, but bring that back on the 17th for this, just have this one EIR and this to be reviewed? Do you think that that's a reasonable expectation?
Well, we are in the middle of pear and grape harvest.
So
And then walnuts are coming up, but
And given that it's the 3 farming
it's possible.
commissioners who are,
but it's possible. So
I think that maybe,
but can this body put together an ad hoc committee? Or does that have to be approved?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so county council shaking her head.
Your commission does not have authority to create, wait, no, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me
Yeah,
look into
find-
that.
Find a place for us to be able to do this.
Typically, no. But I will look to see if the board has carved out, or the state has carved out some authority for planning commissions once they've been created to do
Okay.
so. Otherwise, you'd have to rely on the board.
Okay, so in lieu of that possibility, if we, just run the scenario out, if we make a recommendation that we would like to have the Board of Supervisors select this element as one of the, would you say, one of 4 that we can do every year? Is that what you said?
Your recommendation would be to remove the agricultural resources element from the general plan update.
And then,
And that wouldn't sit well.
How
So-
about if we just reconsider this at a later date and put our,
I think we need to go through it now to, or at least I would like to walk through it, because there are some quick changes or whatever, and then there's also, I think we need to get staff's input on, what can and cannot be done, much like the accept and decline answers. And I also would like to hear from our fellow commissioners, because right now the 3 of us that are more closely involved in ag are speaking to this, but I'd love to hear if our fellow commissioners outside of ag here have any additional comments about, before we dive into it.
thoughts?
Yeah, well, there's some things in here that we've seen in projects that we've either approved or already looked at. For example, one of the items in this chapter where it's regarding like odor, but it doesn't say specifically to cannabis. It's more of like a, they all have their own thing. So that is one thing that I, would like to go further into because it's been an issue for members of the public. So I'm glad that it is in this chapter. So.
Okay. Any comments?
Well, for myself, I'm gonna have to head out. There are definitely thoughts and concerns that I have, and sometimes they're not, they might not be specifically related to the same concerns that my fellow commissioners have, but one of the ones I've always thought about, and I appreciate the reference in here to the historical land use of the tribal community, in terms of it supporting the soils and the rich land, because I've always advocated that be a part of being welcomed and circulated and known to produce some of the soils that we have here in Lake County. And the other question I have always comes back to my cultural resource days and the exemption of ag and how that can potentially impact cultural resources, the no review, and so that's kind of the questions I have in terms of, does that fit in? Is there an inventory? I know there's the CRIS system maintains a record of documented sites which are in ag lands that again has no protections because of the exemptions. And so I'm just trying to understand how all that navigates and weaves together. And so those are just kind of general thoughts I've had. But in terms of where the discussion is going, I would heavily rely on my fellow commissioners who have a greater knowledge base in this area right here.
Thank you. All right, sounds like that we would like to walk through this. Okay. And I guess when we get to the end, we'll decide our next step of whether we feel like it's sufficient.
Commissioner Brown has a hard stop at 2 o'clock.
No, I know, so he just said he was leaving, yeah.
Yeah. So one other quick general comment as we start walking through this is that, for me, part of it, some of it reads like the county is going to instruct farmers how to farm, and the way that things are worded. And I would just like the overall tone of the element to be supportive, rather than to get into anybody's business, so to speak. The other thing I will say, one other general comment as we go through this, is that overall in agriculture, and NAPA just came out with a report This is more geared towards the wine industry, but they just came out with a report evaluating the amount of the cost on their profit, the cost to their product, basically, for regulations. And so overall, I would think that all agricultural folks are going to say that they're over-regulated and don't want to see any more regulations. So I don't really care if it's in the ag element, if it's geared towards cannabis, which we have something in here that is directed directly to cannabis. As Director Turner stated earlier, is that here in Lake County, we consider to be cannabis to be an agricultural crop, and so in no way do I want any reference at all that agriculture wants more regulations, whether it's to cannabis or it's to wine grapes or to pears, cows. No more regulations, please.
All right, are we ready to start? Okay, all right, page 1. Introduction and background. Any comments? I think just in general, where there's a lot of like in the third paragraph, it states 60 billion, and these kinds of things. It's good to know, as I mentioned, as we discussed the earlier element, having at some point attribution to where this information comes from is just helpful, because when you're putting hard facts or hard numbers in there, to the point that Commissioner Rosenthal mentioned earlier, people look at this and knowing the source of the information is very helpful, and when it was gathered, the date, because if it's 5 years old, that's not as good as if it's 2 years old. Understanding clearly that sometimes 5 years is the most current data that you have.
Right.
If we're still on page 1.
We're still on page. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're still on page 1. Okay, page 2.
May I make a comment about page 1?
Oh yeah. I thought you were saying move on. Yes.
No.
Of course.
I'm going back to the first paragraph.
Okay.
It says that local tribes cultivated native plants and animals in Lake County, suggesting they were conducting agriculture. And my understanding is that no, they were hunters and gatherers, and their agriculture was not conducted. The extent of agriculture was individuals owned certain toyon bushes and called them their own. My understanding, according to my somewhat limited education on the subject, is that no, they did not actually create products. They gathered them and hunted them and consumed them. So
And
I am
traded
not an
them.
anthropologist.
And traded.
And traded. I'm not an anthropologist, so in this first paragraph, I would like to see who says. I mean, was someone consulted on this? Because to me, this is just not, it doesn't align with my knowledge. At the bottom, under background, Lake County features high-quality volcanic soils, blah, blah, blah. There are volcanic soils, I don't know if soil is the right term, it's volcanic dirt, on the hillsides, but in the Big Valley area, it's ancient lake beds that are largely organic. There's material that's not volcanic. So again, who says? This doesn't ring true with my knowledge as a farmer. That's all for page 1.
Does your knowledge have a citation that I could use for reference, or is it just
Smiley
anecdotal?
Field, 35-year farmer,
Right.
Lake County.
Just checking, because I want to make sure that we get it accurate when we do it.
I think, though, to her point, there is more than just high-quality volcanic soils, and that is on the hillsides. And in, like, Big Valley, it's not volcanic.
Yeah, made note of that.
Okay,
Got it.
and so to her earlier point, who wrote this?
This has been drafted by the team, reviewed extensively by the team as well as the public during multiple public input sessions, and reviewed by stakeholder meetings and other agencies.
That
So
I somehow didn't hear about.
Well, I think one of the,
I think you've been aware of this process for the last 3 years. This is not a surprise. This has been well publicized in the public, and I know I've given regular updates to the Planning Commission, and the publicly available documents have been available for your review at any time.
I think one of the general wonderments is that a lot of it, I don't say a lot, some of it, some of the content of this has been driven by the consulting. Some of the stuff, and I've looked at other plans, some of the stuff is, and maybe it's because they should be in all the plans, it looks like some of the stuff was just folded in from the consultants and then reviewed by us. And maybe that's the process. I don't know, but that's what it appears to be.
The consultant firm does have an extensive team that went through a number of Lake County documents as part of the initial step to familiarize themselves with Lake County data. Yeah, we did not have a local firm that would have had the capacity or capability or experience to have assisted us in this process. However, I also want to just make a note that because it's not the first time that comments seem to express an idea that this product is disconnected from Lake County because it was done by a consultant. This team has been led by me and by Shannon. We have had we have touched every single part of this document back and forth and reviewed them numerous times. So rather than blaming it on an outside county consultant, I'm taking credit for this. If there are areas that you think are inaccurate, need tweaking, need wordsmithing, absolutely, let's do it, because we want a product that reflects Lake County, that is accurate and updated. However, the fault of any discrepancies are not the consultant's fault. They would be mine.
I apologize if you feel like we're attacking you. I think that
no.
you've done a really good job with this generally. If I haven't participated in the past, it's probably because I try to just do planning commission. And I knew this would come before me. And here it is. It's in front of us now.
Yeah.
So now we're,
Let's get it right.
yeah.
Right. And it's not a question of finding blame. It's just understanding the process so that we know the genesis of this document and
Can make it better.
and some of it,
And a request for citations is entirely understandable. Yeah, I think it's great, and it will do a lot to improve the quality of the overall document.
but it just gives it more gravitas,
Mhm.
It's like, we just didn't sit down and.
We didn't make this stuff up, yeah.
I think often, because like in this particular element is, we're saying more than we have in the past. And so sometimes less is better because there's less to edit and criticize and change and
Also, for a lot of
right.
this data, I think we will find that we use the 2024 crop report that was presented to the county.
Okay, so and to that end, also, that was a question that I had, is that if it wasn't too big, given the timeline where we are now, would it be too difficult to get in 2025 numbers?
I've asked that question prior, and I will we'll repeat that. We'll take a look and see if we can just do a pretty quick update of those numbers.
Okay.
It takes a while to get the crop report.
Well, that's why I
it's
say
never in the
sometimes
beginning
they-
of 2026, which is when I would want it. but
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a year or so behind, and is the most current, even though we're
Yes,
in a
exactly.
different calendar year. All right, before we go on to page 2, I see that our Farm Bureau executive director is here, and so we'll open public comment just for her.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for adjusting your schedule accordingly to mine. And thank you, Maria, for taking your time and listening to everyone's concerns and comments regarding this. Something that I wanted to bring up, like in my previous comment, is I would like to go back and kind of wordsmith and check our concerns and our priorities and see how we can still work it into the document that is something that we can still have there, and maybe if we have to specify it into specific policies or what we wish to see as sort of a guideline, I think that's something we are very open into doing, and working with you to do that. So that way our priorities are still kind of recognized. And if we have to be more specific and we have to fix the words to do so, I think we're definitely open to doing that. And I, again, once again, appreciate the opportunity to bring these concerns. And kind of how I see the element right now, I would like it to be a long-standing document in the sense of forward-looking of agriculture and what that looks like. The diversification, like Margot mentioned with solar, kind of that aspect in that climate resiliency and how that affects agriculture, and the diversification of crops. I mean, we see the 3 main crops recognized in the general plan, but we also have olives, we also have other small farmers that are working with schools, growing melons and pumpkins and all of this great stuff. So I think it's also important to recognize those aspects. And that's what makes us unique in this community, in that resiliency. And also bringing the rich agricultural history and that significance in the plan as we look forward, and how to maintain that agricultural history. And once again, like I mentioned, like climate resiliency in ag specifically, sustainable agriculture and how that's going to be the trend in the future is another thing. Ag water security, of course, land conservation was hit. But if there's anything like that we need specific examples of how we can articulate that and have it accessible in this document, and how we can add those, I'm definitely welcome to having that conversation. Even if we don't want to make it a huge long document, we can still add pieces in that to ensure that that is within the general plan as we look forward in the future of ag, and how different that might look from how it's been. And of course, when it's with the frustration of the crop report and that data, that's like the hard data, right? So if we have 2024 and we're not having 2025 accessible, that's kind of difficult. But again, touching base on the diversity that we have here as well, not just the main commodities, because a lot of our growers are diversified. So, and that's a part of sustainability. Another thing that I'd like to touch base on is bringing some attention to, biodiversity, some agricultural waste and resource recovery, and that kind of goes in hand in hand with sustainability and land conservation. So if we could add some language in there, and then also expanding on emergency and disaster resilience more. We have a wildfire part in there, but maybe expanding on that. And the Ag Pass program is in there, so maybe like an updated version of what we've been doing with the work with the Ag Pass. So yeah, just a bunch of little things that maybe were too broad in our original comments that we can look into reworking and suiting and adapting to meet the sort of threshold or requirements to make it into the document as our priorities. So that's kind of what I had for my comments. And thank you, Madam Chair, for waiting for me and everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that some of your concerns might be addressed in here. Maybe they need to be improved upon a little bit. When we get to the end of going through this, then maybe we can determine if we are going to then have another meeting to include folks from Farm Bureau and other places to maybe make sure that we haven't missed anything.
Certainly, and in
That's okay.
our current comments that we have in there, if there's something that we liked about it and maybe it was just too lengthy, or something that's not, if we need to specify or have specific, yeah, anyways, sorry.
Yeah, got it.
Yes, thank you, Miley. Then that's something we're open to.
So take a look at this. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there's some comments in there that said that they were not going to be included because maybe they were not clear or needed
Yeah.
more specificity,
Yeah.
you could do that, and that would help us as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Madam
back to
Chair.
page 1. Are we done
Madam
with
Chair.
page 1? Oh, I'm sorry. You
To
had-
answer your question earlier about the Planning Commission creating advisory committees, ad hoc committees, I was unable to find anything in the state code that allows for the creation of planning commissions and their authority and there was nothing there that allowed for the commission to create its own advisory committees, nor in the bylaws. And the county's own ordinances restrict the creation of committees, advisory committees, ad hoc committees, all of the subcategories of Brown Act committees to themselves. So, in theory, a pair of planning commissioners could meet and discuss an item, but no more than two, and they could not discuss their interaction, their opinion forming, or anything that they do, any opinions they reach, any outcomes with other commissioners, unless and until they return to a meeting to discuss it. Otherwise, you create a meeting if you involve two, or if you involve more than two.
So the fact that your first research was silent, when it's silent, doesn't that mean that you can do it?
No. Most rules are permissive in the sense that they have to give authority for a particular thing, and I have been unable to find an authority for the commission to do this.
I was hoping for that little place to sneak in. Okay, all right. So what you're telling us is that there are two of the planning commissioners that could get together, review this, and come back with a proposed version.
Correct. And this is true universally for Brown Act bodies, that two or less, or a quorum, cannot meet without creating a meeting. So in your case, it would be two or under, but it really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense if it were just one of you, if you wanted a conversation. But in theory, it could be one or two of the commissioners who could meet to discuss an item without creating a meeting.
Okay, so perhaps at the end of this, two will raise his or her hand, and in that collaboration, can there be other folks part of that conversation? For instance, two planning commissioners and Farm Bureau executive director. Would that be possible?
My understanding is the Brown Act is what we're talking about.
Right.
Correct. I can't find any authority that gives this commission its ability to create its own advisory committees. But under the Brown Act, it would not be a violation if two or less commissioners addressed a particular item or issue, or reviewed a particular item or issue, and then brought their review back. It wouldn't be an official committee. It wouldn't be an official advisory board of any kind. They would have to be cautious of not creating a meeting, so you can do that inadvertently by speaking to one person who then speaks to others, and then you could end up and then somehow it involves another one or more commissioners, and that would create a meeting, and that would be a Brown Act violation. I point this out because the violation belongs to the commissioners, so the violation would be yours. It wouldn't be whomever you spoke to. They don't have to watch out for it. You do. So you would have to be cautious as to how you would address discussing or approaching an issue that is brought before you.
Okay, I understand the two. What my question was, the two working together, can they consult, not a third party here, but just to have a consult with an expert, say?
They can speak to people.
Okay.
The concern here is the
That's
number
all.
of commissioners who
Right,
become
I
involved.
understand.
But so let me, for clarity, so would this be a problem that if, let's say, Sharon and I were working on this, and we consult with the executive director of the Farm Bureau, the executive director of the Farm Bureau later talks to Miley or
Yes,
so then that would be a violation of the
that
Brown
could create a meeting.
Okay,
So that's the risk
no,
of
I-
bringing in outside.
Correct.
okay, so,
If I can just back up for a minute to
Okay.
explain what we're talking about a little bit from my understanding, my mass media law class, I was led to understand that what we're trying to do is create in a democracy a public meeting standard so that people who have something to say have an invitation, they have an opportunity to say it when decisions are being made. So when a meeting is constituted by a majority, a plurality, or I'm not sure what the term is, but if there were 3 members of the planning commission present, that would constitute a meeting.
A
which
quorum,
has to
yes.
be,
Right.
notified publicly, and
Correct.
people have to be invited, etc.
The issue is they don't want, the goal is that all of those who are part of the body, all of those who are in the commission, are required to make their decision, their final decision, based on all of the evidence altogether, because you should all have the same evidence before you. If you are speaking outside, you're forming outside of a meeting, you're forming an opinion that may be based on evidence that the others don't have. You're not hearing every voice that chooses to participate. And so it's a narrower scope, and it doesn't allow the public the opportunity. So it may seem like a stifling restriction, but the goal here is to give everybody the same opportunity. And the way to do that is we create a structure that says these are the steps, and you go through these steps so people know, everybody knows who wants to participate, that this is how you participate. If we act outside of those steps, then how are people to know? So the engagement needs to happen within that structure. So notice periods, comment periods, public meetings that are noticed, and your planning commission meetings, which are noticed.
And this is one of the reasons when I go visit a site, I come back and I report to the commission what I observed, because I think we all need to have the information. And I never make a decision before I come to this room.
Okay.
Meeting.
Before we leave this, just so 2 of us could work on this. We could have a consult. The person who we're consulting with, we have to caution that person not to speak to anybody about it, and then it would work.
I don't know if we'd call it a consult, but I can't stop less than the rule doesn't stop less than a quorum from talking to members of the public.
Okay.
I just need you to be aware that it creates a risk for you individually.
Okay. Individually, okay. Thank you for walking us through that maze. Okay, are we done with page 1? Alrighty. Let's go to page 2. Okay, so on page 2, you see this whole bunch of green on page 2. This was,
Red.
So something happened to your printer.
look at me, I've got green. Because it's ag, so is green. Anyway, all this was the ad as via a conversation with the time that the Ag Advisory Committee met, and this was to bolster and beef up the small paragraph that is on page 3 that is in red and is lined out. So it's to give more gravitas to the right to farm in Lake County. So very much appreciate that that was accepted as written. I would just suggest a title, maybe right to farm, or anyway.
I have a comment on that, and again, on this and moving forward, keeping in mind that, again, this is a 20-year document. And as we were talking about for cannabis in particular, so that our future with cannabis is undetermined. Mm-hmm. So as well as with other crops, there are other things that we don't know about. So I just want to, going with my comment earlier that sometimes less is more. So while I think this is really good, on the other hand, I also want to caution us that this applies to what we have before us today, but also what we don't know is before us, or what changes and emerges from now forward. So just throwing that out there, and that applies to basically all the copy, as I believe Director Turner had stated to us earlier, is that, we have a changing agricultural industry. So that involves, that here in the past, is it already 10 years? We saw the emergence of cannabis, but what else is yet to come? So, or what may change? But anyway, but we have to incorporate, there is that possibility right now. Cannabis is not under the Right to Farm Act, but tomorrow it could be. So,
And if you're referring to the document, I think we were informed that this document, or all the plans, can be revised annually. And we were,
staff
no.
doesn't have that amount of time.
no, but I don't mean a major revision, but if there is an adjustment that needs to be made.
They can be revised at any time, given the will of the board and direction to staff.
Okay.
That's
We are
correct.
allowed
There
to
you go.
do 4 general plan amendments per year per state
Okay.
law.
Now, for general plan amendments, that's not just us making amendments to the general plan.
It also-
That includes projects.
Yes.
Anybody from the public coming forward with a project that they want to request a general plan amendment.
Yes, and so
So-
sometimes we'll group them together so that
Correct.
they all take place at one time, which counts
Okay.
as one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think actually the point is that this is not set in cement for 10 years. There is some opportunity, if need be, to have
Well,
some revisions.
With that, I would question, how many times do you know of the 2008 general plan being updated or amended?
I don't know that people knew that it was could be amended.
There have been a few different
There-
updates
yes.
as required by state law in order
Right.
to like link the most recent Lake County Hazard Mitigation Plan, or when we update the housing element, things like that. But it's only been done in order to comply with state law.
Right,
We have not had comprehensive updates of any of the elements,
Right.
just for the
Right.
sake of updating them to keep them relevant.
right.
So
there
I
would,
think for the most part is that when we do it, again, that's the purpose of us being here today, and being here all day, is to do it right the first time.
right, okay. So
So-
point well taken. All right, so any comments on page 2?
I do have some comments. So when we're talking about, so I think it's let me check, second red line paragraph.
Okay.
We're talking about property owners near agricultural land should expect and accept as normal the full range of farming and ranching operations. How does this apply when we're dealing with like cannabis? Because there are some people that request hours of operation, but here we're saying that it could happen all day and all night if needed for certain.
A lot of conventional agriculture has no such restrictions. This in no way, this is a visioning document, so it in no way impacts conditions of approval for use permits. Those remain.
But I think his point is well taken, that cannabis is different from the existing crops.
At this
Cannabis
point.
smells bad the entire season, and it will devalue the properties adjacent. Whereas other crops, such as grapes and pears, there's an occasional sulfur spray that can be offensive for a few minutes, but it's not like cannabis, it's different.
Well, I guess I wasn't necessarily saying that, for example, but just the operations of if we're going to be, or if it is treated as an agriculture product, which it is, and just how that impacts those property owners. Because the one that's the main one is just like the odor, and all ag produces some kind of odor or dust mitigation, dust products of, when they're running with tractors or they're spraying pesticides. Pesticides could also, they cause cancers. They, for the people that are working directly there, or even just from drift to close by property owners. So it's just, I'm just kind of saying that the main thing is that people that are living close to, they should expect that to be normal. Because sometimes they're like, oh, well, we moved out here because we retired, or it's been really quiet, for all this time. But, when we take their point of view into consideration when we're making our decisions, they should expect those things to happen.
Absolutely. And that's why this expansion of description of the right to farm ordinance is so valuable to be in this document. The board recognizes the importance of agriculture and the likelihood of occasional impacts to non-agricultural uses, which is why they, years ago, required that right to farm information to be placed on the back of the tax bills. So it goes out to every property owner on a regular basis because it is that important.
And it does reference, this is I would say is a more expanded version of what
Yes,
is
on
written, as it says, goes out on every tax bill, which fills up the whole back of the envelope. So,
Yeah, some of the great dialogue in the Agricultural Advisory Committee meetings was listing other agricultural processes or activities, such as your tractor going slow down a county road, things like that, so that the public can help visualize the impacts that are agriculture, that are protected.
And of course, which we haven't gotten to yet, what works hand in hand with this is buffers.
okay,
Buffers and setbacks.
that's on a different page. We're not,
Exactly.
we're on page 3 now. Okay, anything on page 3? Alrighty. Page 4 is a map of the designated lands, and I think it's a
Is
very
that the state farmland
informative
of
map.
importance? Oh, great. Okay,
It says agricultural designated lands.
awesome. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. The next one is farmland mapping and monitoring program lands, which, as you look at the bottom at the explanation, see what all the colors mean. See how much ag is all through the county.
Yeah, I was surprised to see so much grazing land. That's great.
Yeah, I was too. I thought these were very informative maps. Okay, now we're on page 6. I have a couple of comments, but anybody else have comments? All right, I'll start it off. Okay, I'm recommending an add to the bottom of the first paragraph where it talks about the Williamson Act. I know that the Board of Supervisors has been talking about reinstating the act.
Not exactly. They've had a single conversation this past week and did not move that item forward, though there are ongoing discussions.
Right.
Yeah, but I
That's what
think
said
to say,
talking about.
okay,
Okay.
okie dokie.
Talking about it. And so I added a sentence, Board of Supervisors to research reinstatement of the Williamson Act in Lake County. Just as let's take a look at it. There were 2 supervisors that talked about it on Tuesday, about looking at it and exploring how that might work. I'd like to have that be part of the document so that the conversation does continue on. My other comment, other than the possibility of updating the Lake County crops, which is dependent on available data. When it says at the last paragraph, cannabis is, and you have crossed out an expanding emerging crop. Let's see, now I crossed it out, so I'm not sure what was left. But what I'm suggesting is cannabis is a crop grown in the area. It's just a statement. I think to give it some sort of, say it's expanding or it's emerging. It's just, I think all we want to say, it's a crop grown.
So remove the word expanding.
Yeah, and just say it's a crop grown. Pardon me?
Currently, it's shrinking.
Well, but I think if you're gonna have the sentence in there, you
Right.
just say, you're just making a statement. It's a crop grown in the area.
Got it.
If you want to leave the sentence in.
Sorry, that sentence could be reworded so that it carries the information along with it. It could just be restructured to say, following the 2016 passage of Proposition 64,
Okay.
legalizing the recreational use of marijuana, cannabis has become a crop in Lake County.
Okay, I think that's probably even better, because that first little bit is it's a little clunky.
Yeah, and again, that first with cannabis right there at the front, as you said, I mean, I think we want to get away from targeting cannabis, because the reality is that over the lifespan of this, it's going to be folded in more and more and just looked at as an agricultural crop, period. So the less we can pull it out, and the
But
better.
I think we need to make sure that it's distinct from other crops because of the odor issue. It cannot have, in my opinion, the same rights as other federally approved crops.
We're going to handle that very carefully because the
Please.
board has established policy already. And so we don't want to present a product that is in contradiction to established board policy, which has recognized odor in all crops and has taken steps to address odor impacts with the new setbacks that they've established.
What are the new setbacks?
You're not going to be
Remaining
happy with that.
200 feet from an off-site residence in agricultural zoned land, so that would be ag and APZ. Then rural residential has the most significant, I think that's 500, and then I think it's 300 in rural lands.
Okay. Well, I don't think that it would be inappropriate for the Planning Commission to advise the Board of Supervisors. I kind of feel like that's our role in a lot of times. And given that there's 3 farmers who are greatly affected by this on the Planning Commission and none on the Board of Supervisors, I think we're in a better position to advise. I think it's our I feel responsible to advise this will hurt agriculture, to have those rules in place, because
What citation would you like us to add for that?
what do you mean? What do you mean by citation?
When we make a statement such that cannabis will harm agriculture, I would not want to just make that as an opinion statement. We'd want to use
Oh.
actual data to
Okay.
back that up.
In Sonoma County, I believe there was a grape harvest that was canceled because of contamination by neighboring cannabis odor.
If you could email me that citation.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to make a statement in the general plan that cannabis is going to harm agriculture unless it has substantial
Well,
data to back it up, not
okay.
just one example of one
My
vineyard.
observation is that cannabis smells terrible. It brings down property values, and I cannot support just considering it an agricultural crop. It is far worse for the environment for the property values neighboring than
Right.
other agricultural crops that
It's my understanding that this planning commission is trying to get us to stick to well-documented data and non-opinion statements, which is something that we're trying to do.
Well, and I think, yeah, I think, no, and I think to the best that we can, we want to have some substantive, backup, as well as when decisions are made that it only needs to be 200 feet to dissipate the odor. We've had conversations that there are some other data points. So I think if we look when we make statements and to substantiate our document here, we want to, as best we can, have citations.
Indeed.
I can personally attest that when there was a cannabis, it was indoor, 1,500 feet from my property. I could smell it every morning at 8 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
When the doors open.
Yeah, okay. All right, so on page 6, actually, to this point, at the bottom in that last paragraph, I'm proposing that a statement be added, cannabis is not under the right to form ordinance.
Second that motion.
We're unable to substantiate that. Actually, the county has not taken a position regarding where cannabis is entitled or is included and where it is not.
It was
So-
my understanding that it is not covered by the right to farm.
That's my understanding.
That was
as well.
previous understanding. However, that has not been decided by the board yet either.
Well, it's the current, are you
It would take
saying that's
some
go-
legal research to actually see if we could make that statement. We have to make sure that what we say here is also protected by law, and I'm not sure. I could defer to county council because we've had conversations about this exact topic regarding if there's any clarity on that.
Okay, so I would still like to have that in there, assuming that there's not some sort of legal prohibition for that.
Additionally, I would suggest that if we are able to add that, that you would preface it with a "at this time," since this is a 20-year document.
We could say at this time.
If you could clarify what the commission's question is, so that I'm not going off on rabbit
I don't,
chases.
No, I don't know that we had a question.
Okay, all right,
Thank you very much.
okay.
We do have a
Well,
question.
I think there is a question.
The
There's-
question is whether, go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
As I understand it, the question is, should we add the sentence, can we add the sentence, "At this time, cannabis is not covered within the entitlements of the right to farm ordinance"?
Under the Lake County, I put Lake County, I
Oh, thank
wanted
you.
to make it
Yeah.
specific. So is that a permissible thing to add? At this time, cannabis is not under the Lake County right to farm.
Or you could say as of 2026, or,
Well, but we put a caveat of the time that the statement is being made.
So essentially, as of, say, for example, August 13th, 2026, it was not permitted as a,
Yes.
I'd have to double check, but my memory from the conversations that, and the research I did for, when the Director Turner had asked for it, was that cannabis could be covered under right to farm. Right to farm is specifically a rule that provides for notice, like you noted earlier, of farming activity, and it doesn't guarantee a person the right to farm. What it does is it effectively creates a pre-existing non-conforming use. Essentially, well, they would still be conforming, but what it does is it prevents any future neighbors from trying to make it a nuisance.
Right, right.
So the farm in question would have to meet certain criteria, including having been a legal operation, a legally approved use and operation for a designated number of years. So even if it were even if cannabis were covered, which if I recall correctly, it could be, I don't think we yet have enough cannabis farms that meet the required number of years. But you have to have met those number of years in order to activate the notice requirements and the protections and the sort of buffer for nuisance complaints.
Okay, so at this point in time, that hasn't raised to the threshold that you were just referring to.
I don't think so. I don't recall there being any prohibitions for cannabis to have been included in it. But again, I'd have to double check. It's been it's been a minute since we've had that discussion. So I don't know if it would benefit the general plan, but that's up to your commission to make that determination. I'm not sure what the purpose of the sentence in the general plan. But because the plan itself is intended to be a long-term picture of where you want the county to go, or where the county wants itself to go, and declaring what exists now may not necessarily relate to what the plan is for the future, but that's entirely up to your commission to make a recommendation. If you wish to make that recommendation, you can.
Can you check to see if there's any prohibition or parameters under which that statement?
I can see, I can't guarantee I'll figure it out before the end of today,
That's
but,
okay.
but I do plan to look.
That's okay. Thank you. Okay, any other comments on page 6?
yes. Under the photograph, it says pear orchards are an important Lake County crop. If we could just cross out orchards and say that pears are an important Lake County crop, I think that would be better.
Oh, good point.
Oh, and for that picture, oh goodness sakes, that's a horrible picture.
Yeah, that is.
No, I hate that
so
picture.
so
Could you take
I have
Yeah.
on my document, and I will send you these. These are really nice pictures of pears. They look like it's a vibrant entity.
Absolutely, thank you.
I'll send them to you.
Good.
Well, this is I redid this document so I could put all my comments on the document. So I put the pictures in there, so I can. I'll send them
Thank
to
you. I think that's a definite
I
benefit.
also swapped out another picture. I'll tell you that when we get to that page.
Okay.
I mean, the pictures, goodness sakes. If people read that, they're going to go, that's a pear,
I know, it kinda looks like a
orchard? I'm
Halloween
not going there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's page 6. Let's go to the map. Okay. Williamson Land Acts, which I thought was very interesting, and certainly I'd like to see that that increase. Any comments on that?
Nope.
Okay, next. All right, page 8. Any comments? The only comment they talk about in the middle paragraph, agritourism. I think there should be wineries. It says restaurants or tap rooms. Tap rooms, is that beer halls? Is that what those are? What's a tap room?
Yeah, that's like Kelsey Creek Brewery.
Oh, that's a tap room.
That's not, their hops are not grown in county.
I don't think they're tap rooms in Lake County.
Huh, okay. Well, let's switch that out.
Okay, so anyway, we'll cross that out. But I wrote in there many wineries. Seems
Okay.
like that should be in with agritourism.
Good point.
Absolutely.
I certainly didn't know what a tap room was. I
Well,
just
I guess I
don't get
don't
out much,
either.
I guess. Okay, all right. That's 8. Okay, anything else on 8?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The little pulled out paragraph, starting with agricultural tourism. At the end, it says farm-to-table meals enjoyed in the crops.
Yeah.
We get into the barrel of grapes and party, or in the field, in the orchard.
How about just leave it enjoyed, period?
Yeah.
Farm-to-table meals enjoyed
Yeah.
and other activities, yeah, exactly.
Farm-to-table
I don't know, just
Because they can be in the vines, they can be in the orchards, they can be in the fields, so they can be down the street.
Yeah.
Kelseyville does it all the time on pavement.
We do.
my only other question that I'd noted on the side of the second paragraph is I'd like to see some numbers in there. That's all.
Wait,
What?
which?
Festivals, farmers markets, local produce offered, blah, blah, blah. I'd just like some data rather than just blah, blah, blah. That's all.
You want like the number of farmers markets?
I don't agree with that.
That's gonna change. That changes
Yeah, I
all the
think that-
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't agree with that, because then that's,
Okay.
again, this is a
Because like
20-year
next week it's
document.
wrong because they're,
Yeah.
yeah.
We just had a new one.
We have COVID, nothing happens.
That's true. No, that's true. Agreed.
Okay, done with 8?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to 9. Any corrections, comments on 9? All righty.
Yeah, I wish
Yes?
there, no.
No?
I wish I knew more about the timber resources to be able to offer a comment, but I don't. So if anyone out there in the public has a comment, forward it.
This is also a good moment to tell the public, in case they're just joining us, that we recommend and request and strongly encourage comments to be sent in through the e-comment link on our agendas and calendars webpage, because it automatically goes to all of the planning commissioners as well as to our staff. And so that is the greatest chance to not lose track of or lose entirely public comment for introduction into the public record.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that's page 9. Just racing through this here. Page 10, wildfires and smoke. There were some changes from the winter version to the summer version in red. Any comments on those? All righty. Move on to page 11. Agricultural pests and diseases. Okay, so I just sort of a wonderment of why is there there's a big farming element or farming section in the health and safety element. So I just wondered why some of those things that are in the health and safety element referring to ag are not also in here. It just seemed like, I would not have found them if I just looked at the ag that, although it does give a reference. Just wondered why. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if this is the time to bring this up or not, but I've been kind of looking for a place where this is relevant. But in our green sheets, we have a letter from Andy Beckstoffer, who, as you may know, has an enormous vineyard on Red Hills area. He is asking, as I understand it, to be allowed to explore the potential geothermal resources on this property.
I was planning on bringing that up at the geothermal element.
Oh,
But-
okay.
But since it is
That's
on
fine.
agricultural land, perhaps you might want to have that discussion.
Yeah,
And-
I'd like to just hear what everyone thinks of that and explore what it would mean.
So a question just for clarity, because I was wondering, is that on ag land or is that rural lands? What is the zoning on that?
Probably rural lands, you're right, because it's rolling hills
hillside.
and it's more remote and it's typically covered by chamise and
I
manzanita.
thought I looked at the map. I couldn't tell from,
Right, and that's one of the reasons why I was asking for a larger map so I could
But
decipher.
a lot of our Lake County agriculture does take place in rural lands as well. And the rural land zoning district and the general plan land use designation
you.
does allow for primary agricultural use in rural lands and rural residential.
so would that,
The differentiation being that that land that is zoned agriculture has class 1 through 4 soils, as opposed to rural lands, which can still be irrigated, may not have as much water access, but can still be irrigated and then be used agriculturally. But only the class 1 through 4 of that state farmland map are zoned agriculture, as well as a number of other qualifying criteria, such as low slopes and something else. I don't remember now. But
so with this other designation, does it allow for an expansion for perhaps geothermal?
yes, rural lands would allow for geothermal wells and geothermal expansion or test wells and geothermal activity. But all of that is actually regulated within the zoning district or zoning ordinance.
Okay. So maybe we'll put a hold on that and bring that up for that other time, okay. Okay, anything else on page 11, other than there's another horrible picture, which I have a replacement for, which I will send you.
Awesome.
What? Better picture for it. Anyway, I'll send it to you, you can decide.
So
Go ahead. Page
the,
11?
yes, page 11, that whole paragraph on, and wine is crossed off there, but industry uncertainties.
Right.
Industry uncertainties, number one, I don't like that title. Thinking about this as a long-term document, that speaks to agriculture, which, it's traditional that agriculture, all aspects of agricultural go up and down. So to kind of target what's going on with the wine industry today, while all of that's true, but I just think it could be rewritten in a way so that it's a bit more optimistic or less.
Could we actually take a break, please? We just received a text that there's no audio on Zoom, so we should pause and get that figured out.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off there. but-
No
That's
problem.
okay. Okay, so it's almost 3 o'clock. Why don't we come back at 3:10?
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Whipping right through this, page 11. Yeah, but those other pages are meaty pages. I'll send you the pictures. I looked at those, I thought, oh my gosh, those are sad pictures. Oh, I'm sure.
This is the picture I have.
I know, but we don't grow pumpkins. I put, this is,
That right?
your document together.
Well, I'm gonna come in and say, I learned from some comments that.
Check.
Okay, so we each bring our own list in.
We make our decisions based on.
Right, no, I understand, but I mean, you make a list of yours, I make a list of mine, and then we come back and share them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanna talk about that so we're all on the same page about what we're doing with written comments.
Yeah, I think written comments are much more easily digestible.
Oh, sure.
Test.
There's something, I mark it up. Hey, this
Check. Check 1, 2.
Yeah.
Oh, she just said.
310?
Check 1, 2. All right. Looks like we're good in Zoom now.
No, I just gave him thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting us have a little break here, and I believe that our technology is up and running. So please do let us know if you can't hear or see us, so that we make sure that we are communicating with everyone. All right, so we're on page 11, and we'll finish page 11. We have 2 people on Zoom, which we will get to as soon as we turn page 11.
Okay, so I believe I was in mid-sentence, but yes, I was basically saying that this last paragraph that's titled Industry Uncertainties, for the most part, the content there, I question whether it's even necessary, because had this been written yesterday, we may have talked about pears. Had it been written 2 weeks ago, that paragraph may have been targeted at walnuts. So I just don't even think it's necessary. I think that the information about our ag industry is located and is well stated objectively under Lake County crops, where it indicates and kind of shows the fluctuations in the value, and also in what each of the crops that are known to Lake County at this time, how they are doing. If anything, I would say that we could just eliminate the first part or the half of that paragraph and start almost at where the picture is, at just where it says policies and actions in this element aim to strengthen the county's agricultural industry by supporting a wide variety of crops. And just use that, which flows very nicely into the next page where we go into talking about the goals, policies, and actions.
Yeah, I like that. I think that there's no point in, airing our unfortunate situation at this point in time.
The recommendation is to remove that section?
Is to remove and perhaps it needs to be retitled there, yes, but to remove everything from the first word globally through the value in 2024.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thoughts?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, so,
And then you can retitle it to policies and actions, and just continue on with the rest of the paragraph there that says policies and actions. And then, as I said, the next page, 12, will move into the description of those policies and actions.
I just have one more comment, if I may.
of course.
I don't think my mic works, but that's okay. The cut line on the photograph says agricultural tourism helps to boost the success of Lake County's agricultural industry. I don't think that's true.
Could you, we want to make sure we can capture that on the record. Would you mind using Commissioner Brown's microphone if yours is not working at the moment? And please repeat that.
Underneath the photograph, there's a cut line that says agricultural tourism helps to boost the success of Lake County's agricultural industry. As a farmer, I don't think that's true. I think that we have conflicts with tourism quite a bit. I'm not complaining about it, but we do get tourists stop by and steal fruit and dump trash in the orchards and things like that. And I don't do retail sales. I think very few of us do retail sales, so on site.
I think we can come up with a whole new photograph there and caption to go with whatever photograph is inserted.
I have a new photograph suggested.
Awesome.
I can't see it.
I'll send it to you. Decide if you're not.
That's all I got on
Okay,
Page
so,
11.
all right, page 11. Okay, so we'll take the 2 folks, we'll open public comment for the 2 folks that are on Zoom who've been very patiently waiting. Thank you very much. State your name and go ahead.
Betsy, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you so much, everybody. Betsy Kahn. I don't want to be out of,
Betsy, could you speak up a little bit? We can't quite hear you very well.
I'll try. Is that better?
That's better, yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm out of step with what you're doing. My comments that my most important comments I wanted to address to the subject that you were talking about in relation to starting or forming an advisory work group much earlier, this before you went into all the details on ag. Is it appropriate or all right for me to talk about that?
I'm sorry, to do what to that? I didn't catch that.
Well,
She'd like to address the discussion on the
Before you went
ad hoc.
into the specifics on agriculture, you discussed the possibility of creating an ad hoc.
Okay. So it's my understanding from council that two of the commissioners can work together on revising the element, but that we, the planning commission, are not empowered to put together ad hoc committees. So
Yes, and I understand what she said. The reason I'm asking is, may I comment on that problem?
on the problem.
Yes,
Sure.
thank you. Because it's obvious that more work, as several commissioners said, more work needs to be done on the ag element. I'm just paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of two commissioners getting together to come up with solutions for the issues that have been raised does not require that you form a committee. And as county councilor said, you're not really endowed with that power, but I don't see any reason why two commissioners couldn't serve as a research function to consider those opinions that are in conflict and come up with proposed solutions that would then be discussed by the whole commission without taking action as a committee of any kind. They could just agree to go off and review that 150-page list, identify those pieces that need to be addressed, and then come together with proposed solutions in text, and just make that part of the next meeting that you have. The other comment I want to make is that county council kept talking about the Brown Act and the ways in which you would be creating a meeting, quote unquote, creating a meeting. What she's referring to is creating an illegal meeting, because your commission can create meetings. You have offered to have a special meeting in addition to the scheduled meetings in today's discussion. And that might be a way to address these pieces of actions that you would like to take by giving those two commissioners the ability to collect information and bring it back. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's what we're going to do. So I appreciate your you're helping noodle through that. So thank you very much. Next person.
Angela, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Going back to page 8, the timber sales, at the presentation that was done for the North Shore Restoration Project back in July, U.S. Forest Service, Mr. Abley was there, and there was talk about timber sales from the Mendocino National Forest, that they were looking into revitalizing them. So I don't know if putting in further declining is accurate, because they're looking at timber sales for fuel reduction measures. So maybe someone wants to reach out to Mr. Abley and find out the specifics on that. And then moving forward to page 11, or actually be the top of page 12. So if on page 11, you're going to be removing everything between globally and value in 2024. Do you also want to remove the top paragraph on page 12 where it says legacy crops like pears and walnuts also face challenges? Because I think if we're going to remove the challenges that are happening in ag, we should remove all of them. Or if we're going to include them, we should include all of the struggles that we're seeing across ag. So, and then I have one more comment, but I guess I'll wait till we get to the down to page 19. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I would agree removing, we just hadn't turned the page yet to page 12, but yes, I would agree with removing that top paragraph there, or the
So
two sentences.
So the red that's on page 12 we're removing. Thank you for that. It was a good catch. We actually hadn't turned the page. We might have found that, but thank you. All right. So now we are on page 12. All right. We've got other priorities starting at the top of page.
I think you have a public comment in the,
Oh, is there another?
if you
oh.
so wish
Okay.
to.
All right. One more before we close up again.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Just a few comments. Margot Kambara. Back to the utility of having a right to farm statement. I think it's helpful because the the general plan is a reference document, and it's often cited, almost always cited, in land use decisions for discretionary permits that come before the commission, and then heaven forbid it goes on appeal to the Board of Supervisors. But it is a reference document, and I understand the utility of wanting to have it to be shelf stable, but gosh, it has to help us now too, today, in the next 5 years. So when you have a value statement in there about the right to farm, and right now you want to have that focused on, say, food crops as opposed to other agricultural crops, I think that's appropriate for you to say or to have that kind of direction. My other comment is on you are leaning towards, or you have decided to take some text out on the difficulties facing some ag operators, growers. It might be more helpful just to keep that in, because it is going to be something that we will see for the next 5-10 years, the text, because it might help be a good orientation to somebody new to the county, or to our young people who might find this a good primer to understand our ag challenges more, and to see it in one place at a high level. Oh, these are our legacy crops, and they're having a tough time now. Maybe I can help noodle on this and come up with solutions, and maybe it'll encourage some of our young people growing up in the county to take up an ag career or research and go to UC Davis and say, I want to work on this and I want to do something about it. Or this can be my 4-H project, et cetera, et cetera.
We'll insert a policy encouraging youth education in agricultural avenues. So,
yeah. So I know it might not be comfortable to see, like, in black and white, hey, these are the current challenges, but it can be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I have one question. Quick. So we've been encouraged, we, the public, have been encouraged to submit comments via e-comment. Is there a limit to how many comments an individual can submit? No?
Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Ma'am?
whenever you're ready, I have a general answer to your question about right to farm and cannabis.
All right. Before we start the policies, let's go. Yeah.
Okay. So right to farm, the state law, I'm sure some of you have read it, but the language specifically lists agricultural activity and what that includes. That definition could include cannabis. However, at the state level, cannabis is explicitly excluded. Local municipalities, however, under the Right to Farm Act, which is California Civil Code 3482.5, allows for local municipalities to apply the notice requirements to broader subjects, broader agricultural activities, or things they define as an agricultural activity. Other counties have actively omitted cannabis from that. They have included in their ordinance language that says cannabis is not included, is not considered agricultural activity for the purposes of this particular law. I could not find that prohibition for Lake County, and Madam Director could probably, she has said several times during the meeting that the board has been particularly broad in its definitions of cannabis for our own ordinances, so it is possible that that cannabis could meet the definitions of right to farm under local ordinances. However, that being said, it is a very strict rule. It requires that an individual use be not only meet the definition for the particular activity in that county, but they have to have done so for 3 years. They had to have been legal and active for those 3 years. So if, for example, they did not have both, if cannabis were included, if they did not have both the state and the county approvals, appropriate approvals in place when they were cultivating, then they would not qualify. If they were illegally operating for any point in that time, or their operation was essentially not meeting the requirements of the license and the use permits, then they would not qualify. And right to farm also does not apply to illegal activities which are nuisances in and of themselves. So, for example, if any agricultural activity, if any farmer, for example, who has qualified for the right to farm uses illegal chemicals, for example, that could still be a nuisance. The right to farm doesn't protect that. If they abuse water rights and break the law in doing that, then that would not be a protected use. So it's not an unlimited protection. It's a protection from neighbors claiming a nuisance, provided all of the prior criteria have been met. So 3 years of active use, and it has to be a legal use, and it has to meet the definition locally for right to farm.
So at this point, the county has not specifically added it to the right to farm, and so would our statement then?
Well, it would be that the county has, if the county has defined cannabis as an activity that is included within the definition that right to farm protects, then cannabis would be protected. If your commission would like to, you could recommend to the board that they explicitly exclude cannabis from the right to farm rules within this county. That, however, I don't think would be something that would be done through the general plan. I think that would be an ordinance amendment.
Right. But at this time, there's no particular.
There's no specific prohibition that I could find.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so it's now 3:31, and I'm proposing that perhaps we go till 4 o'clock. How are people feeling as far as continuing end time?
Or until we finish the ag element, whichever comes first.
Okay, we can do that, and then we would then refer it to.
Let's just work on the ag element.
All right, let's see. Oh,
Let's just keep going. Let's
how we
go with
go?
your first thing,
All
and
right.
as we get close to 4, then let's address whatever else might happen.
All right, we'll go to 4 and we'll take our temperature then. Okay, so
I'd like to respond to Margot if I could.
of course.
I want to thank Margot for input, and I will take it into consideration when I meet with Monica to rewrite the.
Thank you. All right, we are on page 12, other priorities.
Okay.
I had a suggestion for, in the first paragraph where it says diversifying the agricultural industry, and I put in promoting sustainable farming practices can help fortify industry against changing conditions, to add that. And then on the last paragraph where it says increase agritourism, and I said and sustainable farming. So my question is, excuse me, I wasn't adding those. My question is, there's no definition of sustainable farming. Whereas in, I think it's a health and safety, there's a little teeny box that talks about regenerative farming practices, which is, as I understand various farming practices, there's sustainable, which is a giant umbrella. Regenerative is one of the things, as well as biodynamics and other things, practices sort of hanging under the sustainable umbrella. So I think that someplace we need to define what sustainable means. And then I know that we're not in the health and safety one, but my wonderment would be, why is regenerative farming little box there and not, I mean, if you're going to talk about that, it should be in with farming. And I even have a wonderment about why it's singled out.
How about we change that call-out box from regenerative to sustainable?
How about we say organic, which is defined?
Well, then you need to do a whole list of definitions. Yeah, but
Underneath it.
then you need to do a whole list of definitions
yeah.
of all the various different farming. But to that point, because organic is not mentioned very much at all in the ag element, regenerative is mentioned several times, thrown in there, and that concerns me because I fear it's a buzzword right now. Sustainable is more acceptable as far as Commissioner Zoller is stating. I think that's generally, for a general plan, a more sustainable and acceptable word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That describes, that encompasses a lot.
And you can take the regenerative one out of health and safety and put sustainable and put it in here so people know what that means.
Yeah, awesome.
And I don't know that we want to list every possible iteration of, it would be.
I like Commissioner Rosenthal's point that, a buzzword, it tends to be
It
really
is.
hot now and then
Right.
fade off in the future.
Right.
So let's
And-
stick to what we think will be more relevant throughout the
Yeah,
20-year
so
period.
I think
Yeah.
that with that
Mhm.
correction or recommendation for that, starting with, anything else on that particular paragraph?
Just for the record, I feel that sustainable is also a vague word. Organic is defined by law, so I would favor using the term organic because sustainable is arguable.
Well, look at in the health and safety, there's a box in there that says regenerative, and I think that the definition in there is really sustainable. Take a look at that and see if that might kind of complete what your thought is on that.
And Commissioner Field, I'm not speaking about just one instance in the ag element. I'm talking about throughout the ag element that sustainable is a better, I've been here for too long, I'm
I
losing my
agree.
voice.
I agree. Sustainable is better than regenerative.
Yes,
Yeah.
because not everything is organic, as per the organic definition, but more or less everything is sustainable, or at least we want to, at minimum, strive for sustainability.
Yeah, so I think with that clarification, and maybe we're the only ones who sort of live it and need to know that, but I think that it needs to be made and clear in the ag element. Okay, so, all right, so we'll move on then to goals, policies, and actions. And the first goal, AR1, agricultural lands that are protected from conversion to non-agricultural uses. All right, so we've got a bunch of policies. Shall we just start going through the policies and see if there are any responses to any one of them? So we'll just start at AR 1.1. Anything?
I think that one's good.
Okay. Okay, so I just have and it's not it's a question of clarity. AR 1.2 to 1.4, they're talking about minimum parcel sizes and things like that. Where's the definition for those kinds of things? First one, preserve large contiguous areas. You know, what constitutes a large, I don't know what contiguous means, but, you know, large, 5 acres, 20 acres, 100 acres? So I didn't know what, are there some criteria that define those? The next one, lands that are large enough to sustain viable agricultural activities. Well, you know, what does that mean? And what does viable activities mean? Can you grow? You can grow. Can you support a family? Probably not, or, you know, maybe not. So I didn't know what that meant. And then AR 1.4, encourage the consolidation of substandard size agricultural parcels. What's substandard?
The minimum parcel size is described in the land use element as in the agricultural section.
Okay, perhaps
Smaller than that would be substandard.
Okay, maybe perhaps a reference to because when it says substandard, I don't know what that means.
Good.
And so some sort of what would we call it? Substantial reference point or something?
I think we were going with citations.
Citations. but somewhere that it explains that, because if I read that, I go, I don't exactly know what that means.
Yeah. No problem.
And then I think in the last one, it says prohibit lot splits. I think that probably falls into that same. Okay, so 1.2 to 1.5 needs some clarity, or at least a reference point to where you find what those things mean.
Good.
All right, 12.
I
anything?
have a comment on AR 1.2. The second sentence of that says discourage applications for projects that would lead to fragmentation of agricultural areas, which I totally agree with, except I just wonder in a document like this, how do you go about discouraging applications?
What if we change it from discourage applications for to prohibit projects that would lead to fragmentation of agricultural?
Right.
And what is fragmentation? I mean, I know what that word means, but what does fragmentation of agricultural areas specifically mean?
It could possibly include a general plan amendment and a rezone to take land out of agriculture and put it into something else, or it could be a division of land that is less than the minimum parcel size, which would create what would in effect be mostly a primary residential use rather than allowing for viable commercial use, which isn't really for us to define what is viable. Because that varies, but it's where it becomes something that can operate. You know, something that a farmer's going to look at that and be like, okay, I can do that. You know, to me that's viable.
So, for example, in that one, it says discourage applications for projects that would lead to fragmentation of agriculture areas. We were discussing earlier that a certain designated use would be turned into, like, for the community. So it would
This
be
would
like
be a really good
rezone.
example why you might not want to say prohibit, because the land use is taking land that is designated agriculture, but because they can't use it for the purpose that they have, which is resource conservation and education, they're asking for it to be moved to resource conservation. Should we have the word prohibit, it would immediately refuse that type of a project. So kind of like less is more, you want to stay flexible and malleable. Because we never know when these things are going to come up, and the justification for them is sound, and in which case it would convince you as a deciding body and the Board of Supervisors that made sense. And so we wouldn't want to have to outright just prohibit something like that.
And
Okay,
also-
I agree. I take back my suggestion.
And also, if a project was going to do that to an agricultural land, it would still have to come before the commission, which we would then either approve or deny.
Okay with that? All right. Anything else on 12? All right, go 13. starting at the top, 1.6. 1.7, we had an addition, except where necessary to support agricultural operations.
Yeah, what does that mean? Why is that inserted?
So that agricultural operations are not limited and they can put in sewer, water lines, and roadways?
Yes, as opposed to typically where you find your infrastructure, your sewer and your water, municipal services, after that follows residential development and
Right.
commercial development. And that would lead towards a conversion away from agriculture, which we want to avoid.
Avoid.
Okay, you okay with that?
Okay.
Alrighty. 8.1. I made a comment. What is the local agency?
Formation Commission.
LAFCO is
who are
a
those
separate
guys?
entity. They oversee municipal service reviews, which is checking to make sure that services offered by independent districts, sewer districts, fire districts, that they have the capacity to do the services that they're offering. Also, when cities want to annex land, make a change like that, that goes through LAFCO as well. LAFCO is also one of our focus. They focused in their review on agriculture too. They're very concerned about preserving agricultural land, and
Right.
so
Okay.
that's why they're in there.
Who are they? I mean,
I thought they
what's the
were-
committee made up of?
It is made up of city representatives, county representatives, members at large. It's run by an executive director, and they meet, if not monthly, quarterly. I think it might be monthly. They alternate their meetings between Lakeport and Clear Lake. And yeah, they've been meeting, they meet all the time.
So it's generally a focus group that's based from the two cities?
It's actually an established agency.
If I
We
may-
have LAFCOs all over the state.
Madam
Yes,
Chair?
LAFCO's
Oh, good.
oversight.
Nicole can.
Okay. I just,
It's an independent state agency created for each individual county that oversees essentially urban development boundary changes and agricultural and open space. So their goal is to essentially be a referee and to independently evaluate, say, for example, when a city annexes part of the unincorporated county, they would do it through LAFCO so that the parties aren't doing it alone. They're the referee, they're the overseer, they independently evaluate all of the stuff.
make sure that it's,
Right. Same with utilities. If a utility spans, say, a county and a city, and the city wants to be responsible for the utilities within their district, that would be a change in boundaries between the county utility and the city itself, and so they would get involved with the separation, help decide who's responsible for what, who pays who what, how much. For the loss of revenue, for example, for taxes, if it's a county losing land, or if infrastructure is changing hands, who's responsible for which infrastructure. And so they're a state independent body that helps make those decisions so the parties aren't sort of loggerheads about it.
okay, thank you. Just a cornucopia of groups, isn't there? Okay, thank you. I didn't know what that was. Thank you very much. Okay, so AR 1.9, there's some change in here, and I had suggested that whole thing needs clarity. I have suggested rewrite in green here for that. It just,
On
Just-
1.9 specifically, or?
yeah, the whole 1.9.
Okay.
yeah. So I can just give it to you.
I'd like to
Mind reading it into the
Oh,
record?
you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, consider redesignation of agricultural designated lands adjacent to community growth boundaries to urban designations only when substantial infill development has been occurred within the CBG, resulting in a minimum of 85% of vacant and underutilized parcels within the CBG being developed at their allowed densities within the CBG. For the purpose of this policy, a parcel is considered developed if its assessed improvement value is at least 20% of its assessed land value. Underutilized parcels are those developed to a specific fraction of allowed maximum development capacity in residential units or in commercial square feet, or a total land value in dollars. Typically, parcels are considered underutilized when developed to 1/3 or less of the total capacity of the value of the parcel. I don't think it changes anything that it says. It just, I got lost in the cross-outs and the back and forth. That was all. So that was just my suggestion, just clearer language. I can give this to you if you.
I'm not sure what you're asking, are you asking to put all that in there?
I'm just
Or-
asking just to replace that. Replace
Oh, 'cause-
1.9 with what I, it just is, I think is a more clarifying rewrite, that's all.
So you're
Sounds like you're
telling
working
us
with
a different copy.
Commissioner Fields on the rewrite of the,
No,
Did you rewrite it too? Oh,
no,
okay,
I
all right.
just have a different copy than you do, I think.
Yeah,
Because
I
you
do
just read
too.
everything, even though half of it was crossed out.
yes.
So, what I would suggest is maybe we compare notes to see if,
That's fine, okay, we can do
Same.
that.
I think a lot of that is not necessary to be in there, that would
Right.
follow up in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
why I
Yes.
was not, it was just too, yeah.
So I
Anyway,
think
so I
it
tried to
stops
make
at
It is
clear,
more
yeah.
concise because it ends at,
85% of
Yes.
parcels, with this CBG being considered
Oh, okay, all right,
developed.
so I didn't know whether this other stuff was important. I mean, I know that it was crossed out, but I thought it's in there for some reason, and now it's crossed out. What was the reason why it's crossed out? Maybe that's a question I should have asked.
yeah, we did not lose any of the meaning, but made it clearer.
yes.
Okay, that's fine, no problem.
I'd like to add something about this paragraph, if you don't mind. I think that we should be encouraging upward growth. I'm not quite sure how to word that, but I'm sure somebody somewhere knows how to word that better. But what I've seen in my 60 years of life is expansion of urban growth boundaries, and that destroys land. Like, for example, in my native Montana, it's completely a different place than where I grew up, because instead of growing up, they're spreading out. And so I would think that it would be better to say 100% of the, of the properties inside a urban growth boundary have to be used up before we expand them. And I would like to see some language, maybe Lake County isn't ready for this yet, but something that gives an incentive for growing upward instead of outward.
I think that's in our documents, or, I don't know, upward, inward.
Yeah, that's not what this says, though. It
No,
says that.
okay, so let me talk about this a little bit, and maybe it's not clear to everybody, but I'm fine with the way that this is stated and at the 85%. And the reason being, because I know in the Middletown area, and that's basically what we're made up of, is a lot of rural communities. Middletown is a rural community. We have lots within the community growth boundary. It has been designated so that we have plenty of room for growth, but we have parcels in there that are designated low or medium or high density. But we also have owners that own those properties and don't want to develop, because they are on that property right now, and they don't want to, just because we've decided at some point to change their zoning to a higher density. They like the elbow room and the space around them. So they're not selling off their property. They're keeping it in the family or whatever. They're keeping it and limiting infill growth and development. So that's why the 85% works, because you're going to have some parcels that just, even though it's there and you could put several houses on it, the owner doesn't want to do that. So then you end up at the 85%, and then you need to push out the community growth boundaries a little bit. And I know in the situation in Middletown, what we have agriculture that abuts, again, because we're an ag community, we have agriculture that abuts parts of our community growth boundary. So when that time, hopefully that time will come that we have to push those boundaries out, we don't have a choice but push into some ag. So, because of, infrastructure, because you don't want to jump over. So, anyway, so I'm fine with the copy the way that.
Okay. I didn't know if all that other stuff was important, so thank you for that clarity. Commissioner Field, do you have other questions?
No, I understand fully that development is something that a lot of people want to see, and that private property rights are important to a lot of people. I understand that.
Okay. All right, with that, we'll move on to AR 1.10. And this was an ad as well as the one on the next page. On my text, it's in blue. I just had a wonderment of, these were new ads. What prompted these ads? They weren't discussed with the Ag Advisory Committee, so I'm just wondering what
That
prompted
text
them.
does not look new in our copy. It's just that it caused a renumbering because of prior.
Yeah,
Oh, so-
mine
so-
is blue. All the blue is,
Mine's blue.
yeah, that means that it's the original.
Existing.
Oh, that means it was existing?
Yeah.
Oh, the numbering's changed.
Yes.
Too many colors.
Yeah.
Okay,
We had public input that there weren't enough colors, so.
yeah, right, yeah.
You know,
You used all the colors in your box. Okay, so still my question is, on those two, the questions come to me, the Ag Advisory Committee didn't add these, so I'm wondering how were they generated and that kind of thing. That was all.
typically, throughout most of this, the collaboration with tribal governments came from the tribes. That was one of them. And then that's the only one, is 1.10.
Right.
Oh, you mean 1.B?
One and B, yes.
Yep. Yeah. The encouragement to collaborate with tribal governments did come from the tribes.
Okay, so, and I think that, that there's a concern or a wonderment that the collaboration was not with the folks for who this plan is directed.
However, we have tribal governments within these areas, and they do. So one of the goals of the Lake County 2050 project was to recognize, acknowledge, and integrate tribal communities into the general plan update. So part of that is recognizing priorities of these communities that are integrated throughout, even though they do have sovereign lands and lands in trust. Their kids play soccer with our kids. They are our community.
It's where was the conversation with, say for instance, the Ag Advisory Committee about these? There was no.
Well, since these weren't
cross-conversation.
added just in the last one, they would have been in the previous cycle as well to go through review,
I understand that, but
which is when we did talk to those groups too. So
because it wasn't brought up at that time doesn't mean that's not a question now. So the question is, the collaboration, when did that happen with the groups for whom this is applying?
the agricultural element.
No, these
Okay.
two particular items.
Which group are you talking about?
This is in the agricultural resource.
No, I know, but when you say where was the collaboration with the groups, which groups are we talking about? Because I just addressed tribal
Right.
references.
So, right, I understand that. This came from that group for this element. Was there a conversation with anyone else about having it in this element?
So
Like
when we
say
presented
with the Farm Bureau or
updated
anything.
versions, it would have been included there. We did not have specific call-out meetings to see if it was okay with all the other stakeholder groups if we added in tribal cultural protections.
Okay, so that, I guess that answered my question. Things were added without having consultation to the groups for which they were added.
Yeah, just like
understand it was
just like a
original.
number of the other comments that came from various stakeholders or just the general public or a LAPAC or a GPAC, we didn't go back to the tribes either and ask if that was fine. So things have come in from all different sources, and as we have had different rounds of community meetings and LAPAC meetings and ag stakeholder meetings, or then it has just processed that way.
Okay.
We also did receive substantial comments from several other ag groups, Farm Bureau, RCD, right? People who are
Right.
considered part of that stakeholder group, and these were not asked to be removed at that time.
I'm not asking to remove them. I'm just asking about the collaboration for them to be added to the,
Same as
Plans.
any goals and actions, then, is the answer.
okay, thank you. Okay, so we didn't get, I guess we didn't do either one of those, but we didn't get AR 1A. Consider options
is
for
we?
policies.
You mean the,
On page 14.
who is we? You say we didn't get them. I think your copy is significantly different than mine.
We didn't get what?
Or just that the commission hasn't covered 1A yet. We jumped from 1.10 to 1B.
We jumped and we skipped that one. At the top of page 14.
Oh, okay, so I was looking at goals 1.1 that says collaborate with tribal governments, and I believe you might have jumped down to actions 1.B, collaborate with tribal governments. There are two different items on page AR 13
Yes.
that
that's
begin
correct.
that way.
Yeah, yeah,
So we haven't gotten to the actions yet.
No, we're just starting with the actions, but I jumped over one. I did a jump, sorry, yeah.
Okay, so I would like to point out that it is now 4 o'clock, and I would like to move that we continue this meeting to August 21st at 9 a.m.
Okay, now, do we want to propose, we had a brief conversation about two of the commissioners going through and doing some review ahead of that meeting, and perhaps doing some edits and making a copy to share to start with on the 21st. Would you say 9 a.m.? That was your suggestion? Yes. Okay.
Weren't we going to start in the afternoon on that day when we still had that one on the table?
Oh, I know.
Because
1
Commissioner
o'clock.
Brown couldn't
Commissioner
make it
Brown,
till
he couldn't make
11:30.
it.
11.
Yeah, so we said 1 after lunch.
Okay, 1 o'clock then.
Okay, so August
And-
21 at 1 p.m. And so,
So I have a question for staff is, yeah, well, you're going to be included as far as we're going to meet. I mean, because I guess I'm uncomfortable with just Commissioner Field and I doing this and then just bringing back copies to the commission. I want to make sure we include staff
Okay.
in this
Happy
also
to
so that
join
staff
you in that
can
meeting.
help,
can you
you
make,
know, and,
I don't know. It depends on when it is.
well, whether it's a
But
meeting
we'll
or,
coordinate our schedules to make sure that I can participate.
yeah, or we do a draft, you know, we submit it to you for a comment, you know, and then you respond back, that ain't gonna work, girls, you know? So that's what,
okay, so is that what we want to do it? You guys put together a draft, submit it to staff for a quick review before it then comes back to us? That's the process? And, yeah, we'll discuss it on the 21st as well as.
If we could have that done so we can post it no less than 72 hours prior to the meeting, that's required for a special meeting. We would want to make sure
This
that
is
the
not a
public would
special
have
meeting.
the
This-
21st would be a special meeting.
It's not a continuation of this meeting?
No, we're continuing to a date that is not a regular meeting date. That's a special meeting.
Nicole's nodding, so okay.
Okay, all righty. Okay, all right, so we will finish the ag element as well as water, health, geothermal, and noise,
And Monica and I will have our stuff into the
right?
staff by 1 p.m. on Tuesday.
Okay, is that not correct?
You're good. You're
Oh,
fine.
okay, I thought, all right, and so, we'll,
Oh, good. You have an extra day.
oh, 48 hours, oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, so, you will, send out a notice to all the LAPACs and GPACs and LMNOP guys?
With an updated schedule and what
Updated
we
schedule.
anticipate covering.
Okay, so we're gonna meet on the 21st, the 27th, the 10th, and the 17th.
Yep. Excellent.
Okay. Oh, you're okay? I heard that little groan.
A meeting every single week.
This is a once in a 20-year opportunity, and I appreciate the Planning Commission's diligence.
All right, so with that, we thank all of you who spent the day with us, and those of you online, thank you very much. Please send in your comments if you have any to the, what's it called again? To e-comments, and there's no limit on how many you sent in. Not encouraging that, but somebody asked that question. And thank you, and we will see you on the 21st at 1 p.m. Thank you.